Yeah. Oh, I've been back a month or so.
Oh, right.
Yeah. 6 weeks actually. It certainly feels like it. No offence, but I mean, we come back and it had a.
And it's wet and windy and cold.
Yeah. And we had big deal. We came back. We got the very tail end of that horrible weather.
Mm-hmm. With ferry cancellations.
No, we were past that. We missed that.
They were quite exciting.
That's a positive way to look at it.
Yeah, really. Darryl ended up having to book a hotel, or I think he slept at the church. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just wait for Steph.
Yeah, hang on to that function. That was good. Yeah, yeah. It was clear they got your approach, and that was a good thing for them to see.
What meeting was this?
Standing.
Oh,
Yeah, there were goats gone.
okay.
Daniel's goat got gotten.
Yeah.
Good grief.
That must be something, because I've never seen that.
Yeah.
One
That
of those
must-
things that you keep in reserve to indicate the seriousness of the
Yeah.
discussion.
So we'll just wait a couple minutes. Steph's doing something, and then obviously Fritz is just on the call, so we'll just give it another couple minutes. And the minutes, Steph just did them very quickly, so either if we want to sit in the meeting, although we're maybe a little short on time, so if everyone's okay, I might just defer the approval of the minutes to next meeting,
Yeah.
and then we can all have time to review them, and we can just do both sets next time.
Sounds good.
And I'll bring this up in the meeting, but just a heads up, I have a conflict for our next meeting, which is in May. I'm going to be doing a course, so I won't be available. So I don't know whether to, let's decide, do we just cancel it and meet in June, or is there important stuff we attempt to reschedule, which I know is always a challenge, but, or do you go ahead without me and somebody else chairs? So we can think about that.
I just have a question. We've got the EDC meeting the following Friday.
Yeah.
With the Friday afternoon, the 10th.
Let's check. Let's check with everybody.
Because that would be the easiest solution, just go from one to the other.
Yeah, if that time.
Yeah, and not put it in the middle of another day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially since there's a lot of crossover membership.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, well, let's.
So,
Thank you, Fred.
yeah, so I asked Karina in her office to send a diagram over to you.
Okay.
So if you hear a beep, that should be it.
Okay.
But she should be in at 9, but she isn't, okay?
Oh no, does she have a reason?
She's gonna get her.
Yeah, exactly, I want to know her.
No reason.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order, 9:04. Thank you everybody for coming in extra early. I really appreciate making that shift. I've got a work commitment after this. First thing, we have a late item here being delivered. That's where's our agenda here? Agenda. So approval of the agenda. If you've got it, it's that slightly off-colored paper is the agenda in front of us. I'm gonna take a moment to look it over. Fairly light, but I think we'll have a lot to discuss within those items. So if anybody has anything to add or change, otherwise we can have a motion.
Oh, so the late items are land use bylaw document amendments from Fritz.
Okay.
So that would be on supporting material for 5.2, yep.
Okay.
And then minutes, which may or may not want to include from
Yeah.
the last meeting.
I just commented, I said, I think we'll just defer it, given time.
Well, and then just action items, these are just long-standing
Yeah.
ones.
Okay, great.
Right.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I don't know if this would be an agenda item, but I would like to get a list from somebody, Daniel, I don't know, of anything that's coming down the pipe.
I
So
think
we get a
it's-
sense of everything.
I think that's in our action items, so maybe
good.
we'll follow up with Daniel if there is, I think we kind of have called it this list of invisible housing,
Okay.
which is kind of, so maybe we can talk a
Thank
little
you.
bit
Good.
more about what we would like to see in that. Okay?
Thank you.
Any other, no, all right, motion to, do we need a motion, yeah, moved, Maureen seconded, am I allowed to second? I'll second.
Yeah.
Alright, there we go, all approved? Let me see, yeah, okay, good, approved. So adoption of minutes, I'm actually just gonna defer this to next time, if that is okay with everybody, because they just got issued today, and in the interest of time, let's move that along. Public comments, there's no members of the public, so moving right along. Action items, so we have action items, which is this lovely printed one from, that Steph did for us. So, but it's, look, there you go, Allison, first on the list.
Yes.
Municipal housing. So, Daniel, is this still in progress?
This is in progress, I just emailed Tess at the meeting
Okay.
this afternoon
Great.
to go over and start it.
Yeah.
Commission her to do the run of it.
Great.
Yeah, so I guess what would you like to see in it?
I would like to see whatever's in the line, in the works, even whether it's a matter of it's due to happen in the within the next 6 months, or proposals are being made, or there's developments which are in place,
Yeah.
have passed a couple of approvals, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just because people ask me, and I say what's coming, it would also be helpful to know what I can say.
Yeah.
And like, if any of them are confidential, so we're allowed to know, but the public aren't, you should say this is confidential, so I don't say. But people ask me a lot, like,
Yeah.
what's coming?
Yeah, right.
In the current council agenda, Daniel has a planner's report, which is done regularly, and it lists everything that's under consideration.
Great.
So you can look at that as a starting point for getting a handle on what might be coming down.
Okay, is it fairly obvious where it is?
I can
Would you be
send it.
willing to send
I
it,
can do
email it to me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
could
that's
be
what
interesting.
I'll try to work on producing eventually something that shows. I mean, I just think here I've got 3 categories. So I have places that are zoned,
Mhm.
but there's nothing further. So we have ones that, the rezoning went ahead. They didn't do anything. We have ones where people have applied for a subdivision, so that's in the works. So it's like there's lots coming in theory, and then ones where it's like lots are created, but
Okay.
No building
I don't
permits.
know.
Yes.
Are you able to identify in that document the difference between the housing that's for market purposes and rental housing?
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, that's easy because they're generally market housing.
Okay.
In a few exceptions, like in Grafton, it's different, but
Yeah.
most of the places are.
Okay. Because people are often asking me about rental housing.
Yeah, I think this is good, and I mean, I hope that this is something, barring those confidential ones, if there is
Yeah.
something in there that is confidential, could be a publicly available thing.
Yeah.
Like, it would be great if it was just a little one-pager. Again, I don't want to put too much work, because I know you guys have tons of work in the planning department, I don't want to make it onerous, but I'm hoping, like, I don't know, maybe is this something that could be incorporated into your regular planning reviews? Like, I don't know, I'm just thinking, how could it be, I don't want to make it extra work, but is it this great thing that could be regularly updated, easily available to the public so they can see it, available for us to share? It would be great if it was something visual, and I'm thinking either, we talked about a map, so if that is helpful,
That
I
would
need
be
a
so
visual.
helpful.
Yeah, and I need, a map would be great, because then I think people could visually see where on the plan. Or if that's too much, or as well, I just sort of even visualize a really simple like bar graph, that just sort of lists the different ones and says, maybe it's color coded to those 3
Yeah.
things. So like red is rezoned but not built, blue is, this, and green is that, or whatever.
Great.
And then it could be just a simple visual. Again, I don't want to make too much work, but that might be really easy. And then just number of units or unit
Yeah.
type or something like, so I think that just something that's visual and sort of maybe easy to grasp and relatively. That's why I thought a bar would be good, so okay, 5 here, 120 here, 30
Yeah.
here, and then there's a color code for rental. We can see there's this much rental and this much market. Something like that would, I think,
Yeah.
be useful.
Yeah.
So,
That'd be great. Thank you.
The one thing I'm not aware that we easily have is the other ones are vacant lots on Bowen in general, right? So how many lots are empty in the point of
in
road?
just the
And
single
in
family.
part because they're not as easily like in Vancouver tends to be there's an empty lot, it's well, someone's gonna buy it, they're gonna build a
Yes.
house on it, you kind of track it. And on Bowen, it's people have owned it because they bought the lot in the 80s because they thought they were gonna build a cabin, and they sit on it, and then maybe they pass away, and maybe the kids think, oh, now we're gonna sell it or something. So it's not easy to say, well, there's this many housing lots on Bowen, because it's well, they're not really available.
That's not really something
Yeah.
I get asked about
Yeah,
particularly from my
Yeah.
perspective. other people might be concerned.
Yeah, so just saying, well, you know, in terms of what would be covered, it would be covered like, well, there's a subdivision going in here and they'll create 10 lots.
Yeah.
But it won't say in, Blue Water, there's, you know, with this, there'll now be 20 lots available, because we know that, or that it's helpful, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a note to that effect, right?
Yeah.
Just explaining this is what's included, this is what's excluded.
Yeah.
Would be really simple.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I agree. I think what most people are interested in is the more diverse upcoming housing options.
Yeah.
Not is there a, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars vacant lot that, you know,
Yeah.
somebody could build $1 million house on, you know? So I think the more interested is these diverse and different
Yeah.
options coming
I
up.
mean, what I think was interesting last boom, right, like 2015 to now, I guess, is that lots did come on that hadn't been thought of as sellable lots
Yeah.
before, right? Some that we saw, like if you go on Euclid and there's the one on the corner,
Mhm.
right, where Carter built down the hill.
Yes.
Probably nobody ever thought anyone was gonna build there, right? And then lots got more expensive, and now it's like, oh, now it makes sense to build there. Or there's one up Highland Trail, it's the same thing. It was like, you know, everyone's like, oh, it's a cliff, no one's gonna build there. Well, things got more expensive, and suddenly people were like, now I
Yes.
can build on this
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And the other thing to track is I'm curious if we're gonna see people withdrawing or delaying subdivision applications.
Right. As the market has
Yeah.
slowed.
And people say, well, I'll keep it sort of chugging a bit, but I'm not actually looking to bring things to market
Right.
for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And you'll see some of that when you look at this report. There are things
Yeah.
that have been in planning for, it appeared to have been in planning for a very long time, but they're on hold.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thanks. Oh,
Oh, wow, there we go.
yeah, so I would say at first glance, not easily digestible. No offense,
Yeah.
but if you don't know what you're looking at, it's not an easy
You're the
visual.
second page?
Yeah,
Because that's the subdivision.
okay.
So you can see like, these are all our subdivision applications, so these ones that are here.
Oh, yeah,
So you
big
can see these
numbers.
ones, going out on properties does this a lot, so they have an application from 2008, and from 2012,
Right.
2013. Yeah, and sort of, and then in 2017 you start to see more. But so like this one, King Edward Bay Phase 2. So King Edward Bay is where the West Side Playground is on Regis Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one here and there's one, they finalized. So their first phase they finished, and that's to create 2 market lots off of Windjammer, the road that comes up and got a couple big parcels. Their phase 2 was to create the bulk of their lots. So it was like I forget how many, but it's 30 lots, let's say. But essentially they said they were revising their plans. They're slowly doing some of them out and saying maybe they'll go forward with some of them, but not all of them, because they're waiting to see if stuff can sell.
Okay, well,
Yeah, but so I'll bring something that's more visual, but that's sort of the sense.
that's a great start. I don't know.
And it's a great
If you
reference.
could email that to me, Steph?
You have it.
Yeah,
Oh.
and then I think this would be great for the people then that want to dive deeper, we can reference this document, right? So people see the visual and that's easy to digest, and then they can say, oh, I wonder what that number is made up of, you can point them to this, and this is much more detailed.
Yeah.
Great, okay, any further comments on that? No, all right, we'll move along. So number 2, building permits pending and
Yeah.
new build, so
So
that's,
that's similar but different, but those are both, that's my meeting.
okay, yep. And then connecting with VCH and Curing Circle. I think we've crossed this one
Yeah.
off. That one's done.
Oh,
That's all right. Providing sewer information, I've done that. Wait, this is from March 1st. That's all right. We'll forgive you, Steph. You were on holiday. You actually took a
Never
holiday.
again.
No, take holidays. So the speaker series. I'm going to take this as an overall idea for speaker series. Do we
that's
want?
an item, isn't it, for today?
Is it an item? Okay, so let's skip that and we'll get to that item, okay? Number 6, research incentives for developers using comparator communities.
Yeah, I think we spoke to this
Last time.
earlier.
Okay.
But, I mean, the gist of it is that they're pretty typical incentives, you know, increased density, refunding of fees,
Okay.
and the provision of municipal land for housing development.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Number 7, best practice template, I think you, sorry, is there a comment on that?
Well, I was going to just perhaps,
Oh, and fast tracking.
Yeah, okay.
And last time we talked about it, that in a community like Bowen, where we have limited planning resources, fast tracking doesn't make that much of a difference, whereas in Vancouver it would.
Yeah.
is there any value in having, I want to use the term of green land and brown land, Well, builders like working on green land which has never been developed before.
Yeah.
On land that's been developed before and is somewhat vacant or whatever. Is there value in having with the council in writing that they can increase the density to encourage development? Because it's better to develop on our brown land and dirty land than it is to develop on our green land.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, so you're talking that's an incentive for developers.
Yeah, but make it in a formal way so it's properly there.
Can you describe what you would include in brown land?
Land we've already developed, so the old garage site, it's an absolute eyesore. It's slowly getting worse and worse. Is there some way of allowing a higher density so that it is we get development in the cove, so it's a walking community, we're doing things in accordance with the OCP.
So can I ask a question then of Daniel? So is it possible to, without an active rezoning application coming in, is it possible, I know council can, although I doubt they would on private property, can proactively rezone like they've done with their own land. Are you able to, I think what you're getting at is like kind of, it's an informal like, hey, we'll consider, you know, this, is that kind of what you're getting at, to sort of put it out there to say, hey, on these already done lands, we would be very welcome to consider this kind of density? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so that's, you know, people do different degrees of that, but one thing would be, you mentioned an area plan for Snug Cove, like village
okay.
residential, so maybe
Area
it's,
plan.
maybe it's like
Interesting.
Miller Road and it's the stuff behind the pub.
Yeah.
And those things, you would say, this is what's acceptable, and then people could come, either, depends how far, you take it different
Yeah.
degrees, right? So either you'd say, this is what we would accept, so if you come and rezone for this is what you do, or places come and they rezone it.
Okay.
This is the invitation to the party.
Yeah. Sorry, Fritz, did you have?
Yeah, I think you should be careful with that because it also it also encourages demolition, which maybe is a good idea, but a lot of lower cost housing is actually in areas that will be redeveloped. So I think you have to watch that you don't mix up objectives. I think that's a separate objective, and it shouldn't be muddled with providing affordable housing. I think affordable housing is a goal in itself, you know, and if somehow from a sustainability point of view there's other objectives, well, fair enough. But for instance, what happens now in the city of Vancouver, they have so many objectives that nothing can happen, including affordable housing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, and to your point about the
Well, if you
upzoning,
look at the building code in Vancouver,
Yeah.
once how you shake your heads, we said, you know, and now they go with the step code, and it is so difficult to go on step code number 4. It's going to slow down the whole construction industry.
Yeah.
All the construction cost is again going up. We think that the construction cost has increased 100% over the last 5 years.
Yes, if I
In
just
Vancouver.
take, yes.
This is crazy. Like we say to clients now, oh, you want to build in the west part of Vancouver? What do you think? It starts at 600. If we say 5, we say, oh, it's really going to be difficult. 600.
Yeah.
You know, and people, if they build what they really like, they're sitting at 700 or 800.
When you say 600, like, are you...
Square foot.
Yeah.
God!
Yeah, so I'm saying is that, you know, what
Have
we,
you,
of course,
if you reinsure your house here recently, and I have, you've only got to look at the amount you have to reinsure your house for rebuild,
yes.
right? So that you don't fall foul of the insurers for having underinsured your property. So therefore now you're talking of a minimum on a rebuild for that purpose of about $350 a square.
Yeah, and that for Boeing is really low, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't actually believe that most houses cannot be built for $350.
No, as a
That's
rebuild. Yeah.
Wow.
If I could go back to a point you were making, and as I think it's a great idea to consider, Daniel,
Yeah.
but as a word of caution, along the lines like what we're seeing in Vancouver and in North Vancouver is they've upzoned where there's like 3-story walk-ups that are affordable and everything, and they've upzoned them to be
Exactly.
towers or mid-rise, and so now they're kicking them out, demolishing them, rebuilding, and then they're exorbitantly expensive rentals. So I think that's the caution that you're
I
talking
think
about,
they're
is we
really
don't want to
careful, you know.
upzone that we make it so much of an incentive that they're going to demolish what's maybe existing.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking, for just as an example, the
So-
Miller Road, right, across from the community lands. There's a whole bunch of old houses and a bunch of them are rented. You wouldn't want to make it such an incentive that then people would get kicked out of their homes to make very, very expensive homes.
So
or something.
qualify it so it's only for rental housing. Increases only to enable rental housing to be there,
Yeah.
so that it stays
Or
with housing.
affordable
Because
housing.
I get the point absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the last thing we
Maureen
want.
had a point
I
to share.
think Daniel's point is really a good one, and I think your point about being cautious, and you could be selective in terms of who you encourage. So
Yeah.
the specific example that you gave of the garage site, I think is a good one, and it certainly is across the council's minds that in terms of development at that part of the code, given what else is going on in Lot 3, it would make a lot of sense for the garage site to be in motion.
I think that comes under number 15 on your action list.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, good, yeah. So what's a way to move this forward? Is a resolution from this committee that goes up to council, or is it enough that you two have heard it, and is that okay for you guys?
I think so. With respect, common sense here, because
Yeah.
there is no point in achieving something to find that we're just lost in 2 or 3 other areas. So everything is pretty weighed and considered right now. I think we know what the priority is not an argument. So protecting that is going to be
Okay,
top of mind.
so we're okay to move
I
on?
actually feel it would be good to make a motion.
Okay,
I totally trust you both to
Yeah.
take that forward, but I think that a motion carries a little more weight.
I'm not sure what the motion would be.
Well, I don't think you should take one side. I think it's the same as you want people to come forward with potential loss. And if you want to give financial incentives to rental housing, it has to be broader, I think. Like you have to pick one side. What does it really mean? Is that you want something to happen at the corner, well, fine. But if everybody knows what the incentives are, and it includes, for instance, something like ground size, you know what I mean? But it should just be more comprehensive. And it should go out to everybody in the municipality, so they all know, you know?
so Maureen,
Yeah, this relates to the 5.1 meeting or reporting out to the mayor's standing committee. And as part of the proceedings of the standing committee, there'll be outreach to the different committees that are involved. And those are the Planning Commission, the CED, Finance, and us. I think that it carries more weight if you've got a number of recommendations to bundle them and put them before council
Good.
as a bundle rather than piecemeal recommendations.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we're trying really hard in the standing committee to do, not to think about, oh wow, we could do this here,
Right.
without actually taking into consideration the larger picture. So what I would recommend is that we start stockpiling our recommendations as a committee and see how they interrelate, see whether we have any second thoughts or cautions or modifications
Yep.
to those ideas, and then put them
Yes.
forward.
Yep.
Because otherwise we're going to have like ad hoc responses where people aren't grasping the
Yeah.
bigger picture
Mhm.
or how deeply the
Yeah.
committee has actually
That makes
thought
lots of
about it.
sense to me.
me too, I really appreciate that, Maureen, and it really puts it into view because exactly, if every meeting we had one little thing that we're shooting out
Yes.
there, and it's not a comprehensive view, and like some of them might conflict and all that stuff, I think that's a great idea. So could we trouble you, Steph, that the same that we've got our action items, although they're diminishing, can we have another running list that is our housing recommendations, for
Yes.
lack of a better title at this
Yeah.
stage? And so we start adding that, and then it's something that we review each meeting, add them in as we go, and then at an appropriate time, I don't know when that's gonna be, in the next few months, or if it's the end of the year, or whatever, I don't wanna leave it too long,
It's
but
not going to be the end of the year.
okay, great. At some point soon, we'll have a list of these, and then that's what we'll, and I think it could be potentially in response to the mayor's committee's request, but I don't think it should be limited to community land, something like we're just talking about. And I think we'll talk about a little bit more number 15, and this might tie in nicely with the whole RFP thing, so, so anyways, yeah.
Do you want to craft something for that list regarding this discussion, or draft?
I don't know if we need crafting so much as just flagging brown site
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, brown site versus green site development, I
Yeah.
think that's enough
I mean,
of a
and
reminder.
I think it's worth mentioning that particular site, even though I appreciate your point that if we start doing it every site piecemeal, it gets ridiculous. But we don't want to lose that thought, because it's an
I
important
think
one.
say in brackets example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
example. of gas
Example
station.
double gas
Gas
station
station.
site.
And then just flag it as incentives, because that's what the issue is.
Okay, that's great, thank you, everybody.
No format.
Okay, I've got number 7, best practice template. I think you did this. I think we
Yeah.
got that in our inbox. It's done.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Can we get to
Check them off again. Check them off again. Exactly. Oh, number 8, we gave up on that because it's a great idea. I don't have the capacity, and we'll just have to. If everybody can, if you want to reach out when the minutes are public and everything, just let everybody know what great stuff we're doing at the housing committee. Number 9, I think we just discussed this, and 10. I think we just discussed it before we officially started with Allison. We thought, I think we just anecdotally collect this information as opposed to it being a formal thing, for 2 reasons. One, Birch is actually about to do a survey sometime in the next couple of weeks. It'll be
Housing
out.
needs assessment?
Well, no, we're not formally calling it that. It's a survey. So we're hoping to get some valuable information out of it, and we'll happily share those results. So that's being one reason we're about to ask people about some stuff. And then number 1, sometime later in this year, we're anticipating the formal housing needs assessment happening. So we don't want to be repeatedly berating people with questions and exhaust them before the good stuff gets done later. So let's just, again, if people hear anecdotal things, it's just great. And I actually, on Facebook, when ads come up for housing, I actually just do a little screenshot with the intentions of getting them into a spreadsheet. But even just collecting that little bits of anecdotal thing to see where, because it's a big difference in rent levels between even 2 years ago. There's been a massive jump. So just anecdotal collection, I think, helps.
Where does that live?
Oh, at the moment, I'm just doing it, and I
So
think
basically-
we just discuss it. Well, I think just, yeah, if something comes across, just shoot it to me, or we can mention it at this meeting. I don't think it's something we need to formally keep. And we crossed number 11 off. Oh yeah, considering a confidential survey of housing needs for people with
Yes.
disabilities, would you like to still work on that?
Well, I think that would be incorporated
Okay.
into the official housing.
Yeah,
It's going
yeah,
fast.
so let's not
Yes, could we
double
roll that in? It would be
Totally
yeah.
needs
Yeah.
to get rolled in.
Yeah, so let's not double up. Number 13, oh yeah, identify which pages of the Metro Housing, Metro Vancouver Housing Data Book are relevant to Bowen and create executive summary.
Yes, so Sarah produced this when I just
Oh,
emailed it
great.
out, and then I was thinking maybe next meeting,
We can
might
review
have
it.
it as an agenda item.
Yeah.
And I can present on it.
Okay, let's do that.
So now it's in your inbox to review in advance. And then
Thank you very much, Dana. Okay, great. And then we'll print that. That's perfect.
So
we
that'll
can
be part of
print
the
it next
agenda.
time. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, number 15, include the concept. Oh yeah, so this is, we kind of just touched on this in our last little discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think let's move this to could we take this to our new list of housing recommendations? And we can, at a future meeting, maybe even expand on what that means. So yeah, it's the approaching private property owners with RFPs in discussion,
That's in the list of recommendations?
Yes, please.
Approaching
Yeah.
private
private properties with RFPs.
Can I just clarify that?
Okay.
It's not private property owners, it's
Let's talk it
private
through.
developers.
It's like, it's, my mind, what that means is, and maybe it was a shorthand or something, in my mind, it's council saying, hey, here's what we need. Like, for example, I think it's called job space, right?
Right.
Not really industrial land, job space.
Right.
For example, what I'm thinking is, that council would put out an RFP that says, hey, Bowen Island property owners and developers, we are interested in some job space. We are inviting you to bring us a proposal and have some discussions with us about how we might work together to create that on Bowen, because we know it's valuable for the community, and let's see how we might work together. And I'm just throwing this out there, that it might be shared costs for rezoning or something, like how does council help private property owners to develop what we believe the community needs?
Okay.
So that's what I had in mind.
So where this, so there are 2 things going on here. One is what you just described, and the other, which we talked about at the planning session, was RFPs for designated parts of the community lands.
Yeah, as well.
What are RFPs?
Oh, sorry, requests
For
for
proposals.
proposals.
Okay.
Yes,
Or
Sorry.
expressions of interest.
expressions of
Yeah.
interest are kind of used interchangeably. So it's essentially saying, hey, we want this. If you think you might have a piece of land, or you're a developer and you think you might be able to do it,
Right.
put a little proposal together and come talk to us.
Right.
Can we put that out to the community for the need for rental?
Well, I think let's put it on our list of
In a way, we are doing that.
recommendations.
already.
I think people know that there's a need for
Yeah.
rental,
Yes,
but how do we do it
specifically,
efficiently?
how do we get it? Like I was talking about this with Chris Corrigan and saying, how do we shift the mindset of the general population? Tons of people have spare basements that they're not using.
Yeah.
why are they not thinking about renting it out? I know that there's all sorts of, if you do it officially, I know one person who wanted to do that was told she couldn't because she had to do a new septic field. She's going to do it $20,000-$30,000 later. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But is there a way for us to get into the community, change the mindset and say, if you have the space, if your kids are no longer at home, would you consider doing this?
I feel like that's a slightly separate thing, but can I just hit pause?
Yes.
Because I would like to bring up a similar thing. So yes, let's just hit
Okay.
pause. I want to, in this meeting, I'd like to discuss that. So I'm just going to make myself.
So, Stephanie, did you capture the two ideas there?
No.
EOIs or RFPs for private property owners to incentivize them.
Community needed assets.
Right.
Let's call it
Right.
And
that.
then the second is EOI and RFPs for property developers.
Yes.
For designated parts of the community lands.
I think
Thanks.
expression for interest is kind of almost better because a request for a proposal sounds like a pretty big deal to me.
Yeah.
Actually, it's,
Yeah,
it's,
I
it's,
think
a,
you're
it's
right.
a more, it's a better form of
Informative,
wording.
yeah.
I think you're right. It's
Okay,
better
go
wording.
with
So let's go with
EOIs.
EOI. So it's expression of interest.
Okay.
Is a much less formal thing. It's a start of a conversation.
Yes.
Whereas you're right, a request for proposal is generally formal. There's requirements. There's deadlines. So I think you're right. Expression of interest is more what we're talking about.
Or a conversation. If you're putting it out there on Facebook, it's like, these are our needs. Can we have a
Yeah.
conversation if you're thinking along the
Sure.
same
Yeah, and I think the idea being hopefully with an expression of interest, there's some level, they have to put some thought into it, write up something up, and also hopefully, they're qualified or in some way, and I'm thinking more for the developers, for
More for the
example, that.
developers, yeah.
So that they're somewhat qualified, they know what they're doing, they have some experience, and then they're coming to you, because you also don't want to waste staff and municipal time with a whole bunch of people with crazy ideas, which you never know, might work, but very different from what you were talking about, like individuals with basement suites or something. I think that's kind of a different thing, so let's talk about that separately. Okay, are we okay to move along?
Mhm.
Yes?
And I like the fact we've got the bucket for the ideas.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay, so that's the end of our action items. Yes. And that list is gonna be
Do you
super,
want me to
super short.
use this then?
I actually think that we've actually pretty much got through them.
I've got
Is there?
4 remaining, 3. Yeah.
Oh, okay, but 2 are gonna be talked about, they're actively gonna be on the agenda for next month, right?
Yeah. that's
Like
my-
13, 14. And then the speaker series we're about to talk about, and that's on the agenda. So I actually think we could shift that from action items to agenda item, speaker series.
Series.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think we'll be able to take 13, 14. I don't think it needs to be an action item because it's going to be addressed on the next agenda.
And then maybe we'll say with the 1 and 2 as well. You might-
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah, let's
That's
put it on the
agenda
agenda, and then if it doesn't happen, it just gets different to the next meeting.
Graduation from action to agenda.
Okay. So that's done, 4.1. So we're on to 5.1, and I'm just gonna, oh yeah, so speaker series is in there, and I don't want to lose the thing that, and it's kind of part of, no, it's not part of the speaker series. Okay, so sorry, I know we've already changed the agenda, but I'm gonna add something, and maybe it's just under new business. I want to add in, I can't think of a better word, let's just call it like the basement reno incentive, but there's more to it than that. And let's just add that to 6.2.
Overhousing.
It's the overhousing and how we can, anyways, I'm sorry, I'm not really stringing my words well together today. It's that we talked about the whole Victory Suite program, we talked about how do we match that kind of thing, so there is something there that I want to talk about, how we could address that between this committee and Birch maybe, and
So on a matter of language, overhousing, Victory Suite, what's the definition of these?
can we get into that in 6.2?
By all
And
means.
sorry, I know
Yeah.
I'm blown up, but I
Yeah.
just want to,
Okay, because otherwise you are losing the audience a little here.
sorry. So 5.1, meetings with the mayor, standing committee, and community lands. Robyn, I think I was just going to do an update, but it's probably more appropriate that, is there anything you're able to share, Maureen, from your most recent meetings?
Just that we're moving towards recommendations to council regarding the 2 pieces that are on the short-term timeframe for community lands. So making recommendations regarding Birch and recommendations regarding the health center. And the expectation is that those will be on the public agenda on the 23rd of this month. 23rd, yeah, the 23rd, so just after Easter. And part of, as I said, part of the standing committee is to work with those key committees, of which we are one. So there will either be, my expectation is there will either be an invitation to meet or an invitation to submit recommendations to the committee coming up pretty soon.
Great. And I know the reason why I wanted this to be on the agenda is Allison and Daniel and I met to follow up on our last meeting where we'd had some thoughts on it, and there was, I think you captured it in the minutes briefly when I read them, there was a bit of discussion as to whether we make them and whether, and I think this is probably the best way. So then we're actually being asked by the Mayor's Committee to comment on them. So I have our notes from our meeting, so when the opportunity presents itself, or we could, we're actually probably doing okay for time. I mean, we could discuss them now if you guys want, what we kind of talked about at our little informal sub-meeting. And Fritz, I know I caught you up just on the phone.
Right.
And Maureen, I think we chatted on the phone as well. Sorry, my phone is calling me about it. But I also just don't want to leave, I want to leave some time for Fritz's review. How much time do you think that you need for looking at your bylaw review material? Like 5-10 minutes or like 20 minutes?
You know, it's just, that just depends, like it can be 10, 20 years.
10 to 20? Okay. I'm just trying to gauge our time. We've got,
Discussion related.
well, we've got, yeah, like at least 45, 50 minutes left. So I think that's fine. So maybe let's just spend like 5 or 10 minutes. I'll just briefly mention what we had discussed, the three of us, and then either we could discuss a little bit more now or at the next, I imagine it's then the next meeting that we would, unless there's a special meeting in between with the Mayor's Committee, it would likely be the next meeting that we might really get into what these recommendations and the feedback to the Mayor's Committee. Does that timing sound right, Maureen? Okay. So I know what Daniel and Allison and I discussed. There were just 3 things, and I think it was mainly to do where you guys were most enthusiastic was these major infrastructure projects that were happening, and that there might be some lost opportunity of not incorporating housing with them. And so one was the fire hall. Just don't think we have anything. And I think we've agreed not to sort of ask or push for housing on top of the fire hall or integrated with it, because I feel like that's been discussed to death and put to bed. Yeah. But the idea, and I know it's been floated around, maybe whether there's a comment or not, but the idea of keeping a strip at the back, like I don't know how big it was going to be, 6 or 8 meters or something like that, to attempt to keep a strip at the back that could be developed as housing, whether now or in the future, but not sort of, does that kind of capture our idea? Yeah. So that was one, the fire hall. The second was with the community center, and there's this nice, somewhat developable patch next to it, which may very well be reserved for future expansion, which is wonderful. But what we had thought is, could that be designated for now for housing, and maybe it's even one of those temporary modular constructions. So it's going to be there for 10, 20, 25 years, knowing that at that point it could be moved later or something, but at least it's space that could actually be housing at the moment. And I think the main concern there was that a laneway access be allowed, so that actually could be developed as something, whether now or in the near future. But it's a great little spot. I think personally, just especially for like some family housing right near the school and everything, and the community center.
I believe it's currently zoned for housing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's no.
Yeah, so
my
I think,
understanding.
yeah, so as long, and I think the main point being that in the design of the community center, that's allowed to be an access laneway, because I feel like there was a little bit of discussion around that, and not wanting, I know that there's pushback against having like a road going through here, which it is what it is, but making sure that there is access to this, because this site I think would be very, very difficult to access and develop if it wasn't from here. I think coming up from down below and everything would be really challenging.
Yeah.
So it would, I guess that's what we're saying, is we don't want this to say, cut that site off.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So make sure in the plan of the community center, which I know is pretty much well on its way, make sure that the access is allowed and that it's not cut off and restricted. Does that capture what we
Very
talked
much.
about?
Didn't we also talk about adding 4 or 5 apartments onto the medical center?
That's my third one, which I haven't got to yet, Alison. Daniel,
Well,
yeah.
For me, that piece of land sort of comes as an example
This
place for the expressions of interest world. because it's community land that's there. It could be, and it can be raise some revenue to pay off the debt for the community lands, which
Right,
what's the interest on the debt in 20 years of ownership and not selling any?
yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think that could be part of the discussion when we create the recommendations specifically about the community lands. And then the third one, and again, I'm not sure how much purview we have, like how much we can, but we see it as, we were talking that it's quite a lost opportunity with the health center. That if they're building quite a big facility to not have, say, 2 floors of apartments above. And I know I've spoken to them, and one of their concerns is, they have a few different concerns about that, but one being, you know, that they want to expand in the future, but I sort of feel like that's like, it's never cheaper than it is to build now, because
Yes.
tomorrow it's going to be more, and next year it's going to be more. So I sort of feel like if they know they're going to expand in the future, why not kind of build up 3 stories, have the medical, have 2 layers of apartments, and just plan that even both of them, that they know that in 20 years, when they need to expand, they move those people
Yeah.
out and they modify, you know, renovate that floor to become whatever it is that expanded purpose needs. So I know I've heard from them that they would prefer not to do that for a few different reasons, but I personally, if I knew that, you know, they're not, it depends on the timelines for expansion, but I'm imagining they're fairly long, 10, 20 years. We're not talking about 5
Yeah.
years. But even then, when people live in them and they know, hey, just so you know, heads up, there's
Mhm.
gonna come a time when this is gonna turn over. I don't think that's unfair to people. I see it as providing housing for 10 or 20
It's the
years,
same
as
as-
opposed to
yeah.
kicking them out in 10 or 20 years
Yeah.
and they'll lose housing. So anyway, that was the third
By
thought.
that
we had.
time, hopefully we will have, the big proposals, which are due to produce rental housing,
Yeah.
will have actually kicked in and be built.
Yeah, yeah,
Right now, there's just this huge crisis.
yeah.
So
And
they could just
yeah.
copy the same formula, like if they want to expand and the whole building expands and the lower floor and medical expands.
Yeah, yeah, so,
But
and,
you don't have to take anything down or replace anything.
yeah,
It's just, why kick people out of the suites if you don't need to, you know?
yeah, yeah, that's another good point.
But that was
that
also
could
when
be-
I spoke with you, right, and I spoke to David Hawking about it too, is that it seemed to make sense. What I just think was a waste of land is all the on-grade parking.
Right,
And it sits there to be used one day for something else, and to me it doesn't make any sense. Like, I think the fire hall should get exactly the space that they need, and for now temporarily they can park on the community lands, there's tons of it, there's no issue with parking. And then in the future, if somebody wants to build beside them, but they have to accommodate the parking below grade as a cost. And so basically what you do is you move costs to some degree into the future, but you keep the potential of everything.
yeah,
I think it's a total waste to have a building with a whole wrapper of parking around it. That to me is this, like, you would never do that in any place where land is precious. And here it is super precious because we don't have much to go.
yeah,
So it's almost more like, and nobody loses anything in the process. So of course, you know, if decisions are made by council, fair enough, but to me, this should have taken a bit more time to analyze that. And to kind of say all the community lands are back to square one and we have to review everything, that's actually a mistake, because then of course you get the whole, everybody who supports the fire hall instantly against you. So what you need to do is say, yeah, the fire hall is a great idea, here it is, and you can park all around it, and the plans are completely in place. To me, it's a total no-brainer, you know, and it's just like, you know, things kind of happen by default, right?
Yeah, I agree with Fritz. There's always a tendency to try and, frankly, work out the colour of the exterior paintwork before you've even got the planning permission. And I mean, I agree. A lot of this can move peacefully and sequentially forward without creating now.
Yeah, if you first give somebody,
Yeah.
tell them clearly what they have, what you actually commit to them.
That's right.
Which is a functional fire hall, and there it is.
Yes.
Right now, the parking for the people who have to park their car there and race and step into the truck and go, that can easily be accommodated. There's a ton of land.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the medical center. I was saying, one example is that you put some space between the medical center and the other one, a parcel that's for now vacant, but
Yeah.
still owned by the municipality. And guess they can all use it for their parking, and one day there's a better idea for it.
That's right.
Now you're not stuck with these footprints that are sitting in the wrong spot.
And give the medical centre the certainty they need to go ahead, because if they don't go ahead, don't raise the money, there won't be a medical centre, so there'll be no discussion. So exactly to your point.
No, if you put a parcel in between, and
Yeah.
you make it exactly
Well,
the width of
whatever.
a parking garage, which happens to be 60 feet,
Yeah.
right? That parcel is just useful.
Mm.
So, if I may add, when we were doing some of the collaborative design for Lot 3, that was one of the reasons why the health center's site shrunk. And then it ended up being a large municipal piece, so,
No, I didn't mean it in a bad way, I'm just saying is that.
Oh, no, no.
if
No,
you
but
think-
it-
if
but we
people think
actually
there's
did-
a setback, right,
Yeah,
that doesn't
yeah.
help, that's what I'm saying.
no, but, just more, because it's basically I'm saying, we did exactly what you just said.
Okay, good.
So not with the fire hall, I can't comment about the fire hall, because we're not discussing that, but I think the same principle could apply, I like that. But what, the health center was gonna be a strip, and then the housing was gonna be a strip, and then a little bit of parking.
Yeah.
And what they did in the end was create just exactly what the health center needed, and then the parking was going to be shared amongst the commuters in the health center for, I think, exactly what you said, because then you actually have a good sized parcel
Yeah.
that in the future could be developed as something, either because
Whatever.
cars are not an issue because they're
Whatever.
self-driving, or in the future, we can afford to build up and you park underneath, or whatever, it doesn't matter, right?
Sure.
But we said, then you have a nice, decent-sized parcel, still owned by the municipality, it's functionally used right now as commuter parking and health center parking, but it's a good size, rather than dividing it up and leaving useless bits. So that, we did exactly that for that area, so it was thought, whether it's the best plan, I'm happy to hear feedback, but that's where we, yeah, that's where we did. Now, could the same thing be applied to the fire hall? I think maybe that's one of our comments that would go back, is that's the theory we applied to this. Could we apply that to fire hall? For example, the fire hall gets the front portion where the building and a bit of parking is as their site, and the back stays as, I mean, it's all owned by the municipality anyway, so maybe it's a moot point, but the back stays as this, yes, you can use it for parking for now, and then it's this available for some future development that's up or
Which is
something.
basically a guarantee that they always have the parking we need,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And it has to be really close to the fire hall, because every second counts.
Yeah. No, I think that's a win-win. So I think that's something, let's carry that forward to when we have that discussion in the village. Okay, any further comments on, yeah, but that was just kind of what we discussed, and it sounds like they're all, pretty reasonable. And I think when we get are we gonna get like a formal invitation to review?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've talked with Kathy.
Okay.
and We'll see how it.
So anyways, if
I
over the,
expect so.
yeah, so over the next month, if people want to think about it and know that that's what we're discussing at the next meeting, is any recommendations we have specifically on the review of community lands, and of course from our housing lens. And it probably wouldn't hurt, I keep meaning to do this, for us to have a look at our terms of reference. It's not a long document, it would be really easy for each of us to just reread it, and making sure with that lens that's the advice that we're giving. Yeah. Okay, great. So that is 5.1. Let's go to 5.2. Fritz, you're up.
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna get the terms of reference out.
Oh,
Fritz's work is much more exciting.
yeah.
Good stuff, so you get that thing in?
Yep.
Yeah, I think she's got it, so we can have a look. So this is, Fritz has been working on the bylaw review.
Well, yeah, so, so this is like, more like a list of observations. Oh, no, that's not my head down.
Oh, the picture.
Can I send you a picture maybe?
Oh, the email
Sorry.
from somebody.
Because I didn't make it out to the back to the office.
You did that last time.
Yeah, that was kind of, there was some mistakes in it, right?
Yeah, Karina. Okay, just flip them like they put aside.
But if it's not there, I can kind of point at this thing, which is kind of helpful if it's not totally here. So what happened last time is that, yeah, that's it, so, okay. So the idea is that this would become more readable as we go.
Do you want it?
But yeah, so like this is part of this list. No, it's fine, I just said out to the left or whatever. You don't have to be able to read it, it's fine.
Okay.
But the, so last time, we set it up, we did have some mistakes in it, so we kind of tried to take those out. And then the idea is just to give just more to give a graphic idea of how much impact adding secondary suites or adding, maybe I'll put this down there to help me do it.
Yeah.
Because I think in the end would be some nice comments.
It's like, well, yeah.
But anyway, so maybe Fritz gave you this as an example. You know, this is the largest parcel in the RR1 zoning, and then so this is the actual parcel. If you make it square, right? You know it's square, of course. And then if you the second time is just the setback, so it doesn't really mean that much. We didn't take it out. Then this is the total square footage. If you put it all spread out on one level, which you cannot do because this is the maximum site coverage. So the building has to sit in this amount of space of this lot, right? Now, if you have a secondary suite, these two would be in it anyway. So now you're allowed to have one in it, right? You have to if you make a mistake somewhere, you have to keep doing it, right? Yeah. So the idea is that with Danielle's input in the end, this is actually truly certified and correct. You know? BIM certified, right? So then this is an example. That you say, if you have a lot like this, and if there would be two secondary suites in that, would that make a difference? Like, what actually is the difference? You know, the difference, of course, for providing rental housing is that it becomes more economical to build a house there. And if you have two suites, you probably get double the income, and it encourages things, right? So that's that. And then if there's, for instance, if this person is also allowed to have actually in the text it has two, but we never forgot this one. But the idea is to show two, detached dwelling, like a secondary suite that's detached. And you say, well, on this parcel, if it's properly located, of course, this doesn't take topography, increase, and a lot of other things into account. But theoretically, would it really bother you if there would be two little houses here or two little structures? Most people say probably not, because it is so large, and if that would be what the community wants, that there are. And you can even with zoning, you can say in this area of the municipality be allowed, in another area which is maybe more resistant, people don't want it, or it's too far, it doesn't meet some other objectives, so it creates traffic somewhere it shouldn't be, and etc. Right? So now if you go to the RR2, right?
So Fritz, the first one is a 10-acre lot, or?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't have the numbers here, but that I think is correct. I was kind of avoiding that, but yes. So here the RR1, the summer here.
Yeah.
It's actually in the thing there. I have it there.
It says a total of 3,600 square feet for RR1 permit.
Yeah, that is.
It's on page, oh, it doesn't have page number.
Yeah. So okay. So here the parcel is 4 hectares. It says. Huge.
10 acres.
Yeah. It's 10 acres, right? It's a large parcel. It is. So if you go through all the numbers, of course the densities are really low. So this is 4 hectares, that is 2 hectares, right? 10 acres, that is 5, then that is 2.5, right? And so then if you go there, if you take it, then if you follow this, like this is how much floor space you have. If you go down the list, you can see that the floor space that you can have becomes larger and larger till you're so, right? Or it kind of almost wants to pop out of the parcel. That is when you go over FSR1. Right? But anyway, so here it shows that if you do the same, here it probably wouldn't make any difference in the impact, and here we make it 1. This is an example, right? You can put as many of these dots in as you want, right? So, but here you can see it shows that adding some really doesn't make much difference. And then you go to, these are what's called the settlement residential zones, and there's a lot of those on the island. And then the first one is, I think it's an acre, and it's half an acre, and it's probably 4 acre. Yeah, this is, sorry, say about it's 1. This is 1 hectare. This is 2.5 acres, right? This is 1 hectare, half an hectare, quarter. And so here you can see the same. That's how it goes. But here the same impact doesn't have much impact. But here this would still easily work because this is only a buildable area, and that's the if you have a separate structure there. Here it wants to get more into it, which still works. And at this point, it is kind of doesn't really work anymore. You would have a secondary suite in the building, and maybe 2. That's it. Okay? But the idea was more that if this is a really simple graphic and it has simple text with it, that people may think, oh, I never knew that the impact is so small. That was just the purpose of trying to give a graphic representation of what's in the bylaw, and if you add some secondary streets to it, or some detached dwellings, how much difference does it really make? There was the idea about that, but it's just part of this, and this at the moment is still fairly dry, as just being from, if you run through this, and if people would take the time to do that, then you probably notice that if you make some changes to the land use bylaw, so that really helps providing more housing, including affordable housing.
Yeah.
Right? So then why wouldn't you do that? So, so everything that is in, so the first part that we went through before is the definition. So just for this meeting, I just kind of structured it a little bit better and updated it a little bit, you know, from my point of view. That if you go to part 3, which is the third page, that is more just the general regulations. And again, there's all kinds of assumptions that are embedded in the text. And if you would read what's in the text and then somehow you say, well, could you consider this and this? Like even if in the end council would do 10% of this or 20% for that of this, and would pick out the main items, it would make a huge difference, I think. Because, like for instance, like you know, there's a gentleman in my office who wants to buy a lot in Bowen and build a house. Now, if he can build, I'll give you one example. If he could build a house, and he wouldn't have a house with a little rental suite, but he could just build 2 units, and you can have 50% in your, let's call it your secondary suite, right? But it would be really nice if you could actually start a title. Now you have 2 people building something of the same size of a single family house on a lot. Now it becomes far more likely that that actually happens because there's more capital going to that little lot, right? It's double. So or not necessarily double, but it makes it affordable. So there's all kinds of things like that.
And this what you said, did you say, so it could be stratified? Is that
No,
what
I'm
you
saying,
said?
I'm just giving you an example. If it's so expensive to build a house, and most people don't really necessarily need a house of the size that the bylaw allows. If you go through the numbers, the size of a house that you're allowed to build is just absolutely huge. There's basically no limitations on it. Most municipalities now put limitations on a house size, not to basically to make sure that people don't build monster homes because somehow they don't want more than one family to live in a house, right? I mean that is still very subjective in fact, right?
Yeah.
But if you say, okay, if the single family lots exist, and if you're not going to subdivide them, which you could do too, even within here too, if some lots you just want to subdivide them. But you know, if you say no, you still can get more use out of a lot that you don't subdivide because you don't have all the setbacks and you don't have all the double requirements of double services and everything goes on and on, right?
Yeah.
It's more expensive to build 2 houses or 2 lots than something combined on one lot. But if, like for instance, in West Vancouver, you have these large lots, and then people say, why do they build these big houses? And I said it in the previous meeting too. It's simply because the zoning is like that. If you're an architect, you would much rather have different zoning. You know, if we would, and then there's all these lots that have tons of potential, but it all sits there, and these are bylaws that are created. These subdivisions are 60 years old. They're done just after the war. They have things in there, if you even know it is in their design guidelines, it's so embarrassing, you know. People of color are not allowed, and it goes on and on, right? But at the same time, they created those lots. So then the only thing you have to do is either allow more to happen on those lots, and then you get what you want. Now, maybe in some municipalities that's really hard to achieve, but I think in Bowen, because it's so varied and it's not like these huge blocks of the same zoning, like the RS1 in Vancouver, you know, it's just like lots of people would like to change it, but it's so difficult to change it, right? Because it's such a big political issue. But here I think that because it's far more variety, it's much easier for councils to stimulate things, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah.
No, I was just going to say what I take from that and what the point we made earlier in an earlier meeting was how do we update and change the building bylaw to incentivize the housing that we
But
want
if you
and
say
need.
building bylaw, right, you have to be careful.
Oh, sorry,
Because
at the zoning.
it's the zoning bylaw, it's the zoning bylaw, right?
How do we update this to actually incentivize and create
Yeah,
the
because-
housing that we want and need?
Because
as a
more
community?
in general for the committee, the BC building code is the BC building code, and Bowen Island cannot change that,
Yeah.
right? We're only the BC building code, this is as simple as it is.
Mhm.
And they have this step code thing, you probably are aware of that. And a lot of municipalities like to be sustainable, and they want to adapt the step 4 code as soon as they can. But we all know as architects that this is going to, again, put a whole layer of, of complexity and cost on every unit,
Yeah.
right?
So Fritz, we've said we're adopting step 1
Sorry?
this fall. We've said we're adopting step 1 this fall and step 3 in
But
20.
step 3 is doable,
Yeah.
but the difference
Yeah.
between step 3 and step
Yeah.
4
Well,
is
it's
significant.
significant.
Step
So
3 and
see
4
this-
is a big deal.
So step 1 is this fall,
Yeah.
so fall 2019.
What did
And
they
then
say for step
Step
3?
3,
The following year, 2020.
so like September,
October.
October.
So to give an example, if you build in Vancouver, which has its own zone, building bylaw,
Yeah.
right? You're basically at step 3. You know, we need to just do a little bit with insulation and all that, and we're kind of in step 3. But step 4, a lot of, I think there will be some political issues with it.
No, I mean, just because on one hand we want accommodation people can afford,
Right.
and on the other hand we want to be incredibly environmentally aware, we want to build the very best type of properties.
Yeah.
But there is a yin and a yang on this, and I'm not sure, this is going to take a lot of talking through, obviously, because
Well, we have to get to step 5 by 2032. So, right, like that's
Yeah.
well, that's the current thinking, yeah.
yeah, and so I think we'll do well, like, I'm glad to see that. I think, anyways, my personal
No,
opinion is I think we'll do well to trail the large municipalities
Yeah.
and go behind them, because it takes time for the industry and the manufacturers to catch up. So,
Yeah.
like, Vancouver and other municipalities are pushing the envelope, and so then in 5 years,
Yeah.
triple glazed windows will be the same price as double glazed are now. Do you know what I mean? Like, the
Exactly.
manufacturers, everybody catch up, right?
Yeah.
So then we come in and say, hey, here's step 4, and already the systems are in place, the builders are used to building it, the manufacturers are used to making it. So, yeah, I don't think it's too much to worry about. Anyway, sorry, we're off
So
topic.
could I
on
ask
step four.
a question in a practical way then? So right now, we would like to be able to build a little cabin for our son Ben, who's currently renting low income, but it's vulnerable. We can apparently only build a 10 by 10, 10 feet by 10 feet cabin, which is not livable. It's too small.
Yeah, that is an accessible, you have to, here's the explanation.
So are you talking about
That's
something
still-
where
that's-
we could change that and make it?
No, but this, okay, now, that graphic that you saw, this one that I
Yes,
have,
yeah.
right? That is not the 10 by 10 small accessory building that you're allowed to have, and in
Yeah.
some of them you can have like 20 of them, if you read the zoning bylaw, at least I believe that is correct. And so this is for the detached accessory building that can be used for residential use in the bylaw, right?
Which right now are limited to sites that are 0.9
Nine.
acres and above.
Yes, ours is a third of an acre.
Yeah.
So what's the maximum? This is
So you would be
Purely-
allowed an attached secondary suite in your house?
no. We're looking at
Yeah.
Allison,
non-attached.
why don't you and I have a chat
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
another day? Let's go
Yeah,
for
this
coffee
is,
and
this
I'll-
is a personal
Yeah.
question.
But it's also probably realistic for other people.
It
I think
is.
you're bringing that voice. I bet there are other people who either for a family member, an elderly parent, a community member, whoever, who have a decent sized piece of
Yeah.
property that could fit a small, modest
Cabin.
secondary cabin. And what we're saying is, right now, it's limited to the 0.9. I don't know if that's coming up for review or if that's on the books, if anybody's looking at that. But what you're getting at, Fritz, is like, there are sites where it would fit easily, and why have we limited it? Is
Yes,
that kind of what you're getting
The
at?
idea was this, is to only, and it's more part of all these things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
But this is more like if somebody talks about a 10-acre parcel, that you can actually put it in perspective. That you say, look, it really doesn't have much impact, right? That if because it's 1,000 square feet. Every little box that you see there
The colored
is
boxes.
90 square meters, is
Yeah.
1,000 square feet, which could be a 3-bedroom unit. So they're not, they don't have to be any bigger to be useful. You know, you could even have 2 small suites in 1,000 square feet, right? So but for instance that, right? Like if you say, like what I just said, right? You can have 1 secondary suite, right? But why can't you have 2? Even within the same square footage that's allowed. But if you go, then it doesn't meet the bylaw. So then you have to go back and ask for variance. Then why? Because you want to encourage it. Then the bylaw should be written different. And what we do, like I'm an architect, I can tell you one thing, many times we read the frickin' bylaws, right? And somebody says it isn't reasonable. And I said, yeah, so, who cares? It's the bylaw, right? And we do all kinds of things that are completely stupid, but we do it because it's the bylaw. And in the end, there's a plan checker, and plan checkers are plan checkers. They check the bylaw. And this, for people to understand that, it's so simple, but you know what I mean? It is like, it's so embedded in the whole system, and I think, well, if you read, I don't think we should go through all of this, but if you would just take the time, because this is really a summary, and it is more to implant ideas. So for instance, if you read 10 of them, and you agree with 2, of things that are in orange, I think from, oh, well, that means that there's a fair amount of support. I think that our committee probably would say we support 50% of this. I'll be very surprised if it's less.
So, okay, Michael, did you have a...
Just as we are an advisory committee, so I'm not saying to take this off the table, but this is a subject very much worth pursuing, because obviously it's something that Daniel's involved in, and you know, when you hear that we do things because, and yet, for all, not to repeat what Fritz has said, I'm wondering how maybe, without tying us down right now, how we pursue this, because as an advisory committee, maybe we should be advising on these subjects, and this is very much our mandate.
Totally agree. So, Maureen, will go to you, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in.
It's part of the strategic plan, so identify barriers to housing diversity in the OCP and land use bylaw and proposed revisions. So, I mean, we can, as a committee, simply go through this, and if there are points that make sense, we can
Fantastic.
propose.
So,
forward.
like,
And we would do that through Daniel.
Yeah, that was going to be my next...
And then the second
Yeah.
point is just that it was an expectation when we put in place the secondary suite bylaw that we would monitor the uptake, and Daniel's be doing that, and really see what the impact was. And if there were further revisions that were required, those could be suggested as well. So, I mean, it took 10 years to get through a gazillion councils, the secondary suite, the detached secondary suite part of that bylaw.
Yeah.
And there was an understanding that was much too long, and that we weren't sure what the impact would be, and that there would be further changes. So this is really timely, I think, in terms of suggesting revisions specifically related to housing, rather than sort of some of the other concerns that were at the forefront.
so Marie, this is specifically written for housing,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
because there's other things you could change.
Yeah,
But then, for instance, if you would think that Danielle, it would be reasonable for Danielle to just read through all this and make comments, like what maybe the complexities may be.
Can I jump in
Yeah.
first? So I don't want to cut you off. I do want to move on, but so to everybody, exactly what you've all just said. Firstly, thank you so much, Fritz. Like, this is
Absolutely.
extremely valuable information,
Yeah,
and
but
that
so
you and
say
your
one more
office...
thing.
Okay, one more thing.
Yeah, before you let me go,
Yes.
because so these are just definitions, but if you read them, you have to think about, if you create a bylaw, did you expect that to be the meaning of the definition? Okay, that's one. Okay, then you go to general regulations, just do the same, like to which degree are these things in your way and are you surprised or not? Then if you go to item 4, which is the actual zones, and then, for instance, if you would have addressed the 2 chapters before, so to speak, right, and you go to the actual zoning, you don't have to change that much, because now, if you change what you change in here, it has already incorporated what you actually want to do, right? So for instance, if I say R1, and it says, for example, consider this or that, right? Here, R1, for example, consider 2 accessory suites in the principal building and 2 detached dwellings. Now, with a total of 3,000, whatever, and it gives it a square footage. Then if people want to know, what do you mean by that? Well, first of all, if you then look at the upper left square, that's exactly what it is. That is the RR1, and then you go, and there's only like half a page. That is actually that graphic. Then it says RR2, RR3, and this is just an example. And then some kind of a discussion has started, and if it pans out differently, fine, but at least it gets attention, it's
So
being addressed.
what I'd like to do, I will jump in. My thought is, I wonder, and I don't think it'll be next meeting, I think we have a lot of stuff on our agenda next meeting, but maybe 1 or 2 after that. And I think I'd like to make an action item, or I don't know how we deal with this now. Daniel and I, could we just have an offline discussion? Because I know he's doing a review of Bylaw, so I want to check in with him about his timing on when that's happening. And then I'd like to find a good time. I actually would like us to maybe take an hour of one of our meetings and workshop this, and sit, just like you were saying, and actually sit with Daniel if you think it's valuable to have other people from the planning department, if there's anybody else we should, like, so, and have our meeting be a workshop, maybe we extend the meeting time a little bit, and sit here, do exactly what you just said. Okay, this is this parcel, this is this wording, does this make sense? What do we actually want to do? So, and actually sit and workshop it.
Exactly.
So can we do, so Daniel and I can sort of just figure out when that appropriate timing
Yeah, I think it needs that.
yeah, exactly. I think this is great intro and to start us thinking, but I really think we actually need like a session of time to delve into it.
Yeah.
And I agree that we won't let this drop, and this will be something that we'll do over the next few months.
So it's too important, and therefore it
Absolutely.
becomes
Super
a
valuable.
separate and distinct conversation
Yeah,
in and
exactly.
unto itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Fritz.
Yes,
Like, I
thank
just
you.
can't say how valuable this is. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Fritz, can I ask too, specifically the secondary suite piece? So we have a couple of things that just mimic like BC building code, that no bigger than 90 square meters and no more than 40% of the building.
It all depends how you, that is more like how do you deal with your, that's a whole kind of legal aspect, because I think that if something, because we're using a certain definition,
Yeah.
and the secondary suite is part of a house, and therefore the building code is different.
Yeah.
The moment you say you can start a title, the building code changes, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think, the first is the intent.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can't, that's just an example.
Yeah.
You would say you can't do this because of the building code. I'm saying no.
But that's not what I.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's embedded in it,
Yeah.
right? Because what you're saying is correct. If you have something in a house, right, how big can you make it before you have to put in fire ratings and
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, then, if the moment you make it, you start a title, you know, not the secondary suite can have
Yeah.
any
Or
size.
even a two dwelling
Yeah,
unit.
but I'm saying
building.
it's the word that instantly restricts it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think that's what Daniel's asking.
Like, so, yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, so we didn't have the restriction said, okay, it's not more than 40% of the habitable floor space, right? And somebody has a small house and they have a secondary suite in it that's now, you know, they have a 1,500 square foot house
I
and
would
they divide
not
into two.
restrict it at all.
But whatever it is, right, so the restriction's not there. But at what does that trigger for people having to do it? They come in and put a suite and we
But
say,
you know,
okay.
Daniel,
Now you're
you're coming from the
triggered.
bottom. I think you have to go from the top. You
Could
first,
we,
No,
could
no,
we,
almost.
Time, yes.
No.
I wanna have like a whole workshop where we can nut this out,
No,
and
no,
just
no.
because we're tight on time.
You're taking time with it too. Okay, 100%. So I'm
She
saying,
has to leave, she's leaving 10:30.
okay, well,
Yeah, basically.
the only thing I want to say is that you first clearly set your objectives. If council know what they want to do, and forget about the building bylaw for a while. Forget about all the existing things that are in your way, and first go down what council wants. Would they want this? It can all be accommodated by changing the text and
Yeah.
giving it different
The
definition.
language.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying, as part of this, I would like that, as the person that has to call people up and say, oh wait, you're 41% of the floor space, we don't regulate that, you're allowed to do it, but now you've got to put in, you've got to do something differently because you don't fit in the building code as a
Right.
secondary suite, you're now as something, you're gonna have to trigger these things. So maybe you're gonna wanna consider doing 40% of it anyways, because it's gonna.
Yeah, but
So
you know,
let's just
yeah,
say that we
yes.
need to bring the building code
This
into
sounds-
the discussion.
This sounds like a
when we do
big
the workshop.
conversation
But
that
that's-
probably has to happen between Daniel and you and then
Maybe,
Or in the workshop.
maybe to terminate this, wouldn't it be helpful before we have this meeting, if before then, these two gentlemen met beforehand,
Yeah.
so that they could kind of work through maybe a few of these high level, or some of these issues,
Yeah.
which
that are
might
highly
make
technical.
the more general meeting
Yeah.
constructive if they spend a little time together beforehand
Yeah,
first.
I think that's good, and I'd be happy to
Sorry,
participate in
beforehand,
that as
not
well, if that makes
Wonderful.
sense. Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, okay, thank you,
looking
I
forward to
appreciate
that.
the enthusiasm and the robust conversation.
So who's scheduling that now? Daniel's scheduling that, or?
I'm gonna guess Dan's got a lot on his plate in the next month, but, yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, we normally go through Kathy, we're asking people to schedule.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, all right,
Right.
do we have to make it an action item, or what, can we just remember? It's just a to-do.
Yeah.
Just remember.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we have 15 minutes left. So, next 6.1 speaker series. So what we wanted to, what was on our action item list, it was some speaker. I can't remember. Oh, Community Lands Trust.
But we also had talked about a number of other potential topics for this. I still don't have confirmation from council regarding any funding to support this. So my recommendation is that we just keep thinking about potential speakers and just defer it.
Okay, I'm actually going to be seeing Tiffany, and I can't remember her last name, who is the head of the Community Lands Trust,
Right,
next week
great.
at a session.
Have a chat.
So I might just have a chat with her
Yeah.
informally and just say, hey, is this something she's be interested in? And the other comment I was going to make on the speaker series is I put it out about the Rent Smart. That was what was on my, there's this program called Rent Smart, and I think even Landlord Smart, something like that. And I did get some feedback, and there is a cost. If we brought the people over to do it on Bowen, there's a cost associated with it. Alternatively, we could elect somebody to go and get the training, which I feel like might be a bit onerous and unnecessary. But anyways, there is a possibility of that. And the great news being, Birch may have some funding for that.
Great.
So I can confirm at next meeting, if we've received funding, that we may actually be able to invest in that to bring it over, and we could do a rental, a tenant session, and a landlord session.
Great.
So I can confirm the fees and confirm if we've got funding for that, but I think that could be a really great thing. So maybe we could work on that next
And
meeting.
sense of how much?
How much money we have, or how much the,
No, how much Rent Smart would cost.
let me just open my email. They did send me something, and I can't remember off the top of my head. While that's loading, I'm gonna go to the 6.2, which is this whole basement reno incentive thing, which is why, sorry, that was just my cryptic note. So there was this program called Victory Suites. There was, essentially what we're talking about, is there a way that either this committee or municipality or Birch or some combination thereof could act as like, for lack of a better word, like a matchmaker, and help people who maybe have space but are hesitant, or they need a little help doing a bit of a renovation or navigating City Hall, or they're worried about being landlord and getting a crazy tenant, or we have, you know, those kinds of things. Is there a way, like I know the Rent Smart and that will be one avenue to help, but is there a way that we could find those matches? Like, I think we had talked last time, there was somebody publicly on Bowen looking for housing, and we know that there's some older people who maybe have lots of room but would be very hesitant. Is there a way that an organization or a committee could help match those people? So understand the needs, kind of maybe vet the tenant a little bit, whatever it might be, to somehow match those. And I think, Maureen, you mentioned you've been in discussion with a couple of people. So what I just wanted to put out there is maybe could we proactively sort of make a move to contact those people and have a meeting offline, because again, there may be a little bit of funding through a grant application.
Happy to do that.
So we could actually have a little bit of money to support whatever that is. I don't know what that looks like even, but we could start that conversation as to who takes the lead on it, what does that look like, but I may have a little bit of funding to go behind that. So
I would love to
money
know
makes
more
the wheels
about
go round.
what the conversations are that you've been having, Maureen. I'm interested in this topic.
There's interest from a number of community members to help facilitate the issue around overhousing of seniors and figuring out how to essentially do that matchmaking process. So it's very early stages. There are just a couple of things bubbling along that has to do with services for seniors and support for seniors. There's also a major grant application that's going in for 5 different communities, and Bowen's going to be part of it. It's in the agenda package for Monday. Report from Shauna Jennings. It's a $5 million project with West Vancouver, Squamish, Seashell, Bowen, Lions Bay, and I think there's another community involved, and they're focusing on 4 different things. A large part of it has to do with seniors' isolation and steps that can be taken to overcome that. So that's in the works, and then there's sort of the local initiative.
I'm very interested in that.
Can I just ask, any reason why this particular area was selected for this, or did this particular area generate this? Or?
No, we didn't generate, Bowen didn't generate it, I think the drive came from Squamish and West Vancouver.
Okay, and so therefore it's their initiative in which we're going to be
We'll be a partner.
pleased to be partner
Yeah.
to. Okay.
I'm also interested in another aspect of this, which has sort of been alluded to, which is inviting Bowen Islanders to shift their thinking and their hearts to some degree, in thinking less in terms of how can I get the most money out of my house by renting it to others, and thinking what can I give to this community. So yes, you get some financial benefits, but it's also about saying, I make a choice to do something that's going to benefit this community. And how do we get that message out and shift this community's thinking to some degree? I know there's a part of human psyche which says it's all capitalism, but there's also a part of human psyche which says, I feel good when I contribute to my community and I do something that I know is needed.
I think that's a large part of the appeal of the Victory Suites
Yes.
campaign.
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole notion of casting it as
Yes.
Victory Suite, Victory Garden kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of facilitating that campaign?
That is based in,
Is it
Vino.
Tiffany's or?
no.
It was Sunshine Coast somewhere.
Sunshine Coast.
So it's not happening specifically here on Bowen?
No,
No.
and it's part of their economic development body, which is sort of at arm's length
Okay.
from the municipalities.
I would be
It's
very
funded
interested
part.
in, for the next meeting, putting together a sort of a proposal of ways of inviting the community to engage with us,
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
strategies for that.
Yeah, if you want to do that, Alison, that'd be great. So that's an action item.
Yeah, it would be short. I would just be a short,
Yeah.
I think this is an example how houses were planned in the past, is they could only be single family and don't
Yeah.
even think about having anybody in your home, has led to design that doesn't accommodate.
Yes.
But yeah, for instance, now, if you look at the single family zoning bylaw, and if you could build a house where the part that you rent out is somewhat separate and private, it's the mixing up of privacy. That's where, like, I think a lot of people have a house that they don't mind the children to share with, but
Yes.
not somebody
Not a stranger.
that's unpredictable.
Yes.
But so if you say, well, anything that goes forward, that's new, should be able to be designed to create. It's almost like there's a house, and I don't think you should force people to rent, but there is a rental-ready suite in
Yes.
each house that is new, and the houses are designed to be flexible, and that helps so many different goals.
Yes.
Like if you're an elder people, at some point you can go into the secondary suite, which was maybe even small, and you rent out the rest of the house. But if you read the Bible, it's certainly not the intention of the Bible.
Yes.
But for instance, if you want to do something that encourages people to build like that, then maybe this picture, for instance, if there's a relaxation, I put something forward that you may not like, okay? But if there's a relaxation for somebody to build something in the front yard, right? That will probably deal with a lot of privacy, because then if the suite is in the front yard and your tenant is more in the front yard of your building, but you have your backyard and your house, now it's much more likely that it actually gets rented out,
Yes.
right? But then if you look at the Bible and you cannot do that, well,
Yes.
guess what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Daniel and I had a bit of a conversation around this, and one of the questions that I had was, if you start renting out your part of your house, are you in a situation where you need a business license? And it just hadn't occurred to me as part of this, and the upshot of that was that if you had essentially what we used to call in Scotland a lodger, that was not a business situation, but there's sort of repercussions in terms of related bylaws that
It would
need
be
to be
a
considered.
capital gains issue.
And
I
an
mean, the reason why
insurance
houses are so expensive in Canada, one part of it is the capital gains.
Gains tax.
The capital gains exemption, right?
Yeah.
That means that people don't mind parking the capital in a home, right? Now, that's a federal thing, but that could be changed too. But the thing is that now you rent out half your house.
Yeah.
Are you then half exposed to capital gains?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is where the secondary suite thing also comes in.
That can wipe out all your income that you've ever got out of the
And
suite.
perhaps we could that's a
I
very
think also
useful
that's-
conversation, because I've cautioned a couple of people on Airbnb and other things on capital gains
Yeah.
exemption. So perhaps, I wonder if we could kind of append it some ways to this conversation, because federal it may be, but relevant it is.
Yeah.
And-
No, I think it's part of that discussion of the bylaw review, right?
Yes.
Because if it's a secondary suite, that's different from if it's two dwellings, if it's all tied together.
It's the way it
It's
sits
all
at the
part.
federal level.
Yeah. I'll just make some recommendations and we'll send them up the chain.
Well, why not?
And people are very oblivious to it, by the way.
Yeah, I agree they are. Okay, it's 10:25. I think we've actually clicked everything off. I think we have an information with the island plan. I guess that's just officially coming to us.
No,
For
it's,
reference?
The book,
it's here.
Yeah. So it's here as an
It's just
information
a
item.
standing item, people
Yeah.
need to refer to it.
Okay, and just to answer your question, Maureen, the costs for these workshops, they've listed a whole bunch of different things. So it's about, to get them here with travel time and accommodation, I guess they want to stay over. We could, this is just approximate, they just put this together. It's about $1,200 just to get them here. And then they say about $260 per course, and we're suggesting 2. There's a tenant one and a landlord one. And then there's $10 or $15 per manual per participant kind of thing, which maybe we could pass along to people, you know.
so there's not much
So
change
it's
of
like,
$2,000.
it's $1,500, $2,000, depending on what we want to do. But again, we might be able to talk to them, because depending on where they're coming from, whether they actually need to stay over or not, you know, some people just don't know, it's an island, they don't know how far it is. If they're coming from like Abbotsford, yes, but if they're coming from, you know, Langley or something, maybe not. So those might shift a bit, but just as a ballpark.
That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, and then like I say, the other option we've suggested is somebody could go and take their educator course, but it's like 3 days long, like 3 full days, and then you get certified in it, and then of course you can give the sessions numerous times. It might be worth considering if there is a person that would be suitable to do that. It might be a good investment, because then we could offer it, say, twice a year or something, or on an ongoing basis for lower cost. So anyways, we have the numbers, we may have some funding, we'll touch back. So could we add it as an agenda item for next meeting, please? Update on the, what's it called, Rent Smart workshop. Okay, 10:27. I'm gonna officially adjourn the meeting, and I'm gonna run, catch the ferry. Yeah.
Rescheduling.
Oh, yes, thank you, sorry. So I am unavailable for the next meeting. So, one idea that was thrown out is, so we're supposed to meet on Friday the 3rd. Would it work for people if we met the following Friday, but not in the morning?
After the EDC
The
meeting.
EDC goes from approximately 9:30 to 11:30, so
I'm away on the 10th.
you're away on the 10th.
I've got a clash on the 10th as well.
Okay. So, do we want to do a doodle poll then? Is that the easiest, or are there other, because if we veer from Friday, I fear do we lose Fritz, because you're only really available Friday, or are you available
No, I
other
didn't
days?
say that, no.
Okay.
I'm the most flexible person on earth.
Oh,
Actually, once
As long as it's Friday.
I mean, does Monday bother you in the morning during the day?
Some Mondays are a problem,
so like,
and we've got a holiday, Easter Monday's there.
well, if we did, so what have we got? Monday the 6th
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
of May?
I know,
Okay for me?
Monday the 6th.
And again, we don't know about meeting room, but I feel like we could,
I'm looking at the meeting room
Okay.
schedule.
okay.
We have something scheduled for 4.
But I think morning.
You guys are mornings,
Yeah, I like the 9. I'm flexible with the
9 o'clock on Monday, May 6th.
Okay, so am I hearing objections? Monday, May 6th? Does that work? At 9:30, whatever?
9:30 is
Oh,
good.
yeah,
9:30 is a little easier?
Yeah.
No, I'll have a clash on that day.
Oh, shoot, okay. Should we try one more and see
Well,
Thursday?
if
the
I'm the
9th?
only one missing, press ahead. I mean, come on, we don't all have to
That's
be
what I
present.
mean, so yeah, we'll do our best. If we made it, I heard Thursday the 9th? No.
No,
Okay,
please.
so it sounds like Monday the 6th is the best. Sorry,
I
Dan.
don't want to be unkind to
Yeah.
Daniel either,
Yeah.
frankly.
So, but I'll make sure maybe if we want, we can touch base. If that is gonna be the comments for the community land, we'll make sure to touch base before then.
Yeah.
Does that work? Okay, so thank you, everybody. So we'll reschedule for Monday the 6th.
Okay, I've
That's-
just sent you all an invite.
Perfect.
Okay, you've done that, all right. So
Thank you so
I know,
much,
right?
everybody. Sorry to run.
I'm
I
ahead
saw
of
yours, I'm like, just a second, I'll send you one.
I know, I didn't know I could do it that easily.
It was like, oh,
Sorry, Steph, I just flipped it over.
I
And
just worry about your calendar sometimes.
I worry about my calendar. You're not unique. Believe me, you are so
I wanted to
Organized.
online.
Good meeting.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Robyn.